Alliance-1 for Operation Chimera. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, guys. This is a difficult one. Maybe one of the most difficult, if not the most difficult, in Operation Chimera. We need to do 30% of the team's damage, and we need to win. If we want to get this done with honors, we need to survive. So let's talk about that 30% for a second. It is not 30% of the enemy's HP pool. It is 30% of your team's damage. So because you have to win, one of two things can happen. You can kill all of the enemy tanks, and therefore you effectively need to do 30% of the enemy's HP pool as the amount of damage that you do. Okay, that is probably the most common way to get this done. And we'll talk about what that means and the context of how difficult this is in just a second. The other way to get this done is your team captures. And because you only need to do 30% of your team's damage and not 30% of the enemy's HP pool, it means that the amount of damage you need to do is less, because there's usually tanks that have survived when you capture. So that's a rarity in my opinion, because maybe 1 out of 20 matches end in a capture. But if you think about the ideal conditions for that scenario to happen, it's mines on encounter. Think about how many times a team caps on mines encounter, because the enemy is just stupid. But coming back to the 30% for a second, assume that you're going to get this done, and your team is going to kill the entire enemy team. High caliber is 20% of your team's damage, okay? And that's maybe 2 to 2.5% of my battles I get a high caliber reward. This is 50% more damage than is required for high caliber. So this is really hard. And again, I'll say it, and I'll probably say it 1 or 2 more times during this video. If you have a token to skip a mission from the Excalibur campaign, use it on this mission. This is hard. So to do this, frankly, the only way to get this done is to be top tier in a 3-5-7 match, in my opinion. If you're going to have a team that kills all 15 tanks, doing it outside of a top tier 3-5-7 match is going to be almost impossible. At tier 10, as an example, if you got an all tier 10 match, the HP pool of the enemy is about 30,000, which means you need to do 9,000 damage in an all tier 10 match to get this done. At tier 7, if you are top tier in a 3-5-7, you probably need to do 2,600 to 2,700 damage, which is what I need to do in this match to get this done. Okay, it's a much more manageable number to be top tier 3-5-7. Even at tier 10, you need to do pretty close to 7,000 damage in a 3-5-7 to get this done. So I highly recommend doing this at low tier. And you can see here, I'm now 1 shot away from getting the amount of damage that I need to get this done. So I'm confident I'm going to get the damage regardless of whether we cap or not, because I would qualify even if we killed all the enemies, because I had a monster game in the T29. But my team is actually going to capture. So I'm just shy of the 30% of the enemy HP pool, but I'm going to get the mission done simply because the team captured. There's 6 tanks left, and so I did probably 35 to 40% of my team's damage. So again, this is hard. If you have a token, skip this mission. I'm not joking around. You're going to spend days or weeks trying to get this done. I think it's much easier to do this at low tier with a high DPM tank than it is to do it at high tier. I actually tried a bunch of attempts at tier 10 with the Badger, which is I think still the highest DPM in the game. The FV-183, the Death Star, if you're lucky enough to have one of those, you can have monster games in that. It was still really difficult. In fact, I spent most of my time fighting Matchmaker, because if you don't get a top tier 3-5-7, the likelihood of doing this is so minuscule. I just ignore the mission if I didn't get 3-5-7, played the match normally, and waited till the next match. But I highly recommend doing this at tier 7 because it gets easier to get the 30% at tier 7 than it is at any other tier. You need to be aggressive, but don't be reckless. There was a couple matches where I got like completely reckless, and the mission was in reach and lost it because I just got swarmed. I put myself in a difficult position trying to get that damage output. Be aggressive, but just watch the minimap, watch your surroundings. It's difficult sometimes to rely on your teammates when you're in randoms, but just be aware of what your teammates are doing. Make sure you do have a little bit of support, but you do want to be out in front because if you're doing well, it tends to snowball and enables your team to do well. And so it's very easy for you to dominate the enemy, but your team has faster tanks, or maybe they're in a slightly better position. Maybe they do something foolish that turns out to be super useful, and they get ahead of you and they start stealing the damage. So be aggressive, but don't be reckless. And the other one is I would say pick a mobile tank. I only had 2 tanks to attempt this in for Alliance at tier 7, which was T29 and the T28 concept reward tank from the first campaign. I actually started to grind up towards the Comet, the tier 7 British medium, to get this done, because I actually think that or the FV201 premium tank is probably the best tank to get this done. So pick something that's mobile. You don't need the alpha. You'll get the damage with DPM. So this is a hard one, guys. If you need help with this, hit me up on YouTube, hit me up on Reddit. Happy to give tips, happy to even platoon for folks that are on North America. This is a really hard one. Skip it if you have the chance, but keep up the perseverance, and you'll eventually get this done if you can't skip it.